Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media, and those were such beautiful and encouraging scenes coming out of Gaza after the announcement of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, following almost 15 months of devastating conflict, a genocide that was live streamed to all of us to see. I think this has brought a glimmer of hope in the region, no matter very minuscule. Mediators Qatar and the US confirmed that this agreement could halt the fighting in Gaza and provide much needed humanitarian aid to come into Gaza and bring home hostages, well, for both sides. Yet, while celebrations erupted in Gaza and in parts of Tel Aviv, the reality of the situation on the ground remains fraught with tension. More than 46,000 Palestinians have lost their lives in the conflict, while hundreds of Israeli hostages remain in captivity. As we await the final approval of this agreement and its implementation, many are left asking, what does this deal mean for the future of Palestine and the wider Middle East? And to help us delve deeper into the complexities of this ceasefire and its implications for the region, we are glad to be joined by Dr. Ahmed Haroon Jazbhay. He's the executive member of Media Review Network, and he'll be unpacking some of the issues that we need to know about this agreement and ultimately what it means for the people of Palestine and this new chapter on Israeli-Palestine relations that all of us across the world are now in a lot of ways a part of. Dr. Jazbhay, Jazakallah so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I think first and foremost, how significant is the ceasefire agreement, and what do you believe are some of the main driving factors behind its realization? Why now?
I think the ceasefire is a testament to the resilience, to the resoluteness, to the resistance of the people of Gaza, of the resistance groups in Gaza. It is, whilst there may have been outside factors such as, the pressure from the American administration, the Biden administration, as well as incoming Trump administration, these are outside factors. And to be honest, in my opinion, they dilute the real significance of the ceasefire. They remove the agency that Palestinians have had over the last 15 months to determine their own future. The current framework, the ceasefire agreement, was the same that was agreed to by Hamas in July last year, first in May last year, and then July last year. And Hamas remains steadfast on those terms. One being Israel must withdraw from the Netzarim corridor, it must withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor, and must eventually withdraw from all of Gaza. And Netanyahu said, over my dead body. And it is now 15 months later that he has to eat his own words and go back. I mean, his internal issues, the internal ruckus within the Zionist entity is up to them themselves to sort out. But Palestinians have remained resilient in the face of a genocide. They've resisted using military means. They've resisted linguistically. They've resisted, all means that they've had. Even journalists have been killed for coming out to the truth. So this is resilience. Israel, the fourth largest army in the world, backed by its Western allies, armed by its Western allies, armed by India as well, has been unable to defeat a group that has elementary weapons, largely homemade rockets, homemade weapons, and so on and so forth. And this is this testament because Palestinians know that this is their land. They have nowhere to go to. They defeated the general's plan. They defeated the ethnic cleansing plan towards the Sinai. They defeated every sort of plan that Israel and its Western allies had for the Palestinians in Gaza. So this is momentous. But what at the same time, we must not romanticize the suffering of Palestinians. Officially, 46,000 plus Palestinians have were massacred. The Lancet says that number is closer to 200,000, but it's not the Olympics of suffering here. And we mourn those who have been massacred and those who have been martyred in this jihad that the Palestinians undertook in the name of protecting Al-Aqsa. So there are a number of factors, but internally, externally, it is a victory for the Palestinians, taking in consideration that, you know, the human suffering was catastrophic. It is no doubt this was a genocide and the human suffering was catastrophic, but Palestinians resisted with all means that they had at their disposal.
I want to focus now to the details of this ceasefire agreement and how it is interpreted by both sides. I, for one, feel like for the Israelis, this was not a ceasefire agreement. This was a prisoner and hostage exchange. And for Hamas and for Gaza, this is a ceasefire. Am I wrong in this assessment? And do you think in any way possible it could see a breakdown of this moment, a moment that is celebrated by the people of Gaza, because they, no matter in what shape or form it comes, they want reprieve. It's been 15 months of horror and hell, and they'll take whatever is on the table. But do you think there's danger in the fact that the two sides have a different opinion of what this is and what it represents?
I think you're perfectly right. You hit the nail on the head in that analysis. The Israelis are looking at this as a hostage exchange. The Palestinians are looking at this as a ceasefire deal. And that's perfectly correct. But this is how the Israelis are selling this to their own people. Remember, Netanyahu and his right-wing goons in his coalition need to satisfy the settler extremists within their ranks. So that's why they and as well as they have to satisfy the secular Zionists within the country. So that's how they are selling it to the Israeli public. If they're going to sell it as a ceasefire, it's going to be a capitulation. I mean, Ben Gavir and Smotrich have said as much. This is a capitulation. So in order to ensure that the Israelis buy into this, the Israeli public buy into this ceasefire agreement, the cabinet, the Israeli government is selling this as a hostage exchange, and many analysts and so on that are so officially sympathetic to the Zionist cause are selling it as this. But when you look at the agreement, it is framed in such a way to ensure that there is a ceasefire. Because right now, in the initial stages, Israel needs to withdraw from all populated areas. After 7 days, it needs to withdraw within 700 meters of Gaza, of the separation barrier between Gaza and the rest of historic Palestine. And after 16 days, it needs to withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor that separates Gaza from Egypt. It's a narrow strip of.
Okay. I think we've lost.
Which Israel has,
yes.
Occupied. So it is framed in a way in which to ensure that if they can, there's a high possibility of a durable ceasefire. Eventually, if all agreed upon in the first phase are released, then we move on to the second phase. And then eventually Israel will need to withdraw fully from Gaza. This is the capitulation phase there. There is no total victory which Netanyahu promised Israelis and his Western allies. He has failed to deliver. So whilst it may be a little bit of a battle over semantics, effectively this is a ceasefire. Whilst the ceasefire is not an ultimate victory for the Palestinians, it's liberation from the river to the sea that is the ultimate goal. This was one battle. Operation Al-Aqsa Flood was one battle in the larger war of liberation on the path to eventual liberation for Palestine. So you're right in some sense, but it is technically a way to sell it to the Israeli public and much of its Western audiences.
And I think we're going to leave it on that note. Thank you so much, Dr. Jazbhay, for your thoughtful analysis on this ceasefire agreement. And I think it's a potential implications for Gaza and Israel and just the broader Middle East region. We're going to leave it there for now. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
There you have it. I think, as we've discussed, while this deal brings a much-needed pause in the fighting and gives a chance for humanitarian aid and, the release of prisoners, the path ahead, I think, is fraught with a lot of challenges. The international community, I think right now, more than ever, must remain vigilant in ensuring and making sure that this agreement's full implementation and both sides must work towards lasting peace. It is clear that even amidst the relief of a ceasefire, there's much, much more work that needs to be done in addressing the root causes of this long-standing conflict. It didn't start on October the 7th, and the last 15 months shouldn't be the defining moment. This has been going on for years and years on end, and ultimately as much as they are celebrated, these moments are just a band-aid on a very, very big bullet wound. And I think for our listeners, this is a moment to reflect on the human cost of this genocide and the hope that one day the people of Gaza may see peace that is both just and, most importantly, long lasting. Thank you so much for tuning in, for staying with us. We're going to take a quick break. News and views will continue after this.